Well, it seems no ocean community was untouched by this relentless storm in Hull, which sits on a peninsula. The pounding came from both sides. Tonight, residents of Hull are being bussed back to their homes after a very stressful day of flooding and evacuation. Darlene McCarthy and photographer Brian Sullivan witnessed the brunt of the storm at high tide, and they have this report.
With every crash of the raging Atlantic, a home was swallowed up. This one lost its stairs before the storm had even peaked in Hull. The owners have seen this before and knew it was time to leave.
We lost the whole front of the place, yeah, in
When?
1978. Yeah, the whole front went. And we put it back together again, and, you know.
You're resilient.
Huh? Well, I guess you have to be. You know, it's, you love the place, you love the water, and being near the water, I guess you have to anticipate some of these things.
A lot of Charlie's neighbors and everyone else who lived by the sea were told to evacuate when a state of emergency was announced, and shelters were set up at 1:30. Schools were let out early, but not soon enough to avoid the spectacle of the sea meeting the road. Traffic was a mess as police closed off flooded roadways, and even emergency vehicles had a tough time negotiating this weather. Hull's fire chief says very little in Hull's past compares to this, even Hurricane Bob.
The eye of Bob passed right over us, so that we took the backside winds, and our most vulnerable area is our northeast shore. And this is a northeast storm, and that's where the impact will come from. The tidal surge will come from the northeast at high tide, and that is where we're most vulnerable here in this town. So I honestly believe this is a bigger threat than Bob was.
Everywhere there were signs of the storm and talk of it. And of course, comparisons to the only other time Hull had been pounded like this.
Because I haven't seen any water come down this street since the storm of 78.
I mean, people in 78 were driving their boats down the street and you know, pulling people out of their houses and stuff, and it was unbelievable. But now it's just, I don't think it'll get up that high, but if it did, I'm sure the townspeople, we all take care of each other.
As parking lots turned to small lakes and roadways became waterways, one resident decided to have the last word on this storm and the first word on the next one, and how to handle it.
What you know strikes me is that they just had an article in the Hull paper that they need to build up the dunes. I think I'm going to write a letter next week.
Shelters are open at the Chelsea Armory, Hull VFW, and Quincy Vocational Technical School tonight.
On the lower Cape, high tide was worse, if you can believe it. The eye of the storm passed just south of Chatham, bringing winds over 75 miles an hour. Homes were washed off their foundations, boats torn off their moorings, crashing them into the docks. Cape residents are no strangers to storms, but this one seems to have taken everyone by surprise. Barbara Morse and photographer Randy Murdoch continue our coverage.